Anthony here. Good afternoon. So today, at this point, after a great discussion on the opportunities of emergency program coordinators and managers, if you recall, we talked about increased awareness and preparedness. We talked about technological advancements. We had topics of community engagement, as well as funding, resources, and focused on a little bit on climate change and climate readiness, and career advancement, so that long-term education, trying to get those under your belt, coming into continued education and crisis innovation. So I want to bring us back into that first topic and have a discussion on preparedness and awareness. So when it comes to developing your program and you're trying to figure out where to start, the first thing you want to do is start educating the people around you and start figuring out what is happening around you. So when it comes to the awareness side of it is understanding where is the current priorities of your chief and council? Where is the priorities of your mayor and council? Whatever the elected leadership title is. What is their current priorities in understanding what funding is available, where they see you going as an emergency coordinator, so that you can align your priorities with theirs. And that is not going to happen overnight. This is a discussion that's going to happen over a long period of time. Having those one-on-one conversations with each of those members and developing a rapport with them. Having them understand who you are, not only as a person, but as an emergency coordinator, using your personal skills, things that you've learned over your lifetime. As every single one of us is different. We each got to this position from a very different path. My path started from the fire service. I'm a third generation firefighter. In 2025 now, I have been a firefighter for 26 years, and I've been a paramedic for about as long, and served my community in that capacity. And working as a firefighter for my nation allowed me to build a lot of the skills necessary to transfer right into an emergency coordinator. One of those was building that awareness with community members. So engaging with your children, engaging with your elders, and just your community members in general, all of the different demographics that are there within your community. So having a educational program to bring to them on all the different resources that are available. So if you're on the West Coast, for example, you're going to have information on tsunami preparedness, because that's very prevalent there. If you're in the interior or along in any of the prairie provinces, you're going to be talking about wildfires, flooding. You're going to be talking about heat spells, all kinds of stuff, right? It'll be very different for each of the regions. And developing preparedness plans for those, for your community members, will help you be that much more resilient. So by understanding where they are in their mindset, where they are physically, will give you the tools necessary to understand what you can bring to them. One area that I'd like to focus on is preparedness kits. These are very underappreciated tool that is utilized in the emergency management field. Having a very robust emergency preparedness kit for your home, for your vehicle, for your workspace, will allow you to ensure that your family is taken care of in the event of a said disaster. So that they're not always in the back of your mind when you're trying to be that leader within the EOC and you're always worrying about your family. You're not going to be very effective to your team. So when it comes to preparedness kits, there's lots of resources out there where you can buy at least the base setup, where you can get the food, the water, the tools, and the equipment to put into a pack and bring that with you. Now keep in mind, that's just a starter. What I've done over the years and in my programs that I've developed is making it more personal to the person. So I take everything out of the pack for them and show them what it is. Try the food. It's not the greatest. But if your family, if you're in your culture, if you have a way of preserving food, then maybe that's what you put into your preparedness kit. You put in foods that you're willing to eat, because those bars they don't taste the greatest. They serve their purpose. They last a long time, but so can your traditional foods. Understanding also what other documents you could be putting into your kit, so that if you had to take that kit with you and evacuate your home, having your insurance papers, having copies of your birth certificates, all of your banking information, having some denominations of cash on hand, games for your kids. Let's say you had to evacuate and you're sitting in your vehicle for a long period of time, or you're sitting in a reception center with a whole bunch of other people and your kids just can't focus and they start going nuts. So you try to find something to keep their mind occupied in times of stress, extreme stress. By personalizing those kits and understanding how to build them will ensure that those are that much more effective for that person. One way that I've done that is to have I developed a game. So in a preparedness kit, you would have, let's say you'll have water, you'll have food, right? You are going to have, what else? A radio. You're going to have games for the kids. But I would also put in there like plush toys, or PS5s now, the handheld Nintendo Switches and whatnot, deck of cards, the most random things that you could think of, right? And I have a list of like 40 of them printed out and laminated in different colored paper. And what I would do is divide the group that I'm talking to, and hopefully it's a large group. I would, if your area is like mine, you're going to have a large family of, let's say, well, I'll use my last name as an example. You'll have a large family of Moors. So you have a large contingent of Moors that aren't directly related, but they're all Moors within your area. And then you'd take everybody, let's say, under the age of 20, and you put them into a group. It doesn't matter how much people there are, as long as they are all segregated. And what I would do is all of those individual topics on top of everything that was typically goes into a preparedness kit, I'd put a strip on the wall like this, a Velcro strip, and call this one the highest priority to the lowest. So we would take each of these from a bag, and it wouldn't matter what it was. You pull it out of the bag and you take 1 second to decide, just for yourself personally, is this a high priority or is this a low priority? And we can have people from the ages of 70 to 20 in one group, and everybody under 20 in one group, or all girls in one group, or whatever, right? And they would all put these all in different orders, and at the end of the game, I would have them all review as a group and everybody that's witnessing it, and have them talk about why that was put there. And does it work for you as a larger family? So for the Moors, for example, they would have I have a lot of young kids in my family, so they would have, like, they'd want their plush toys, they'd want their PS5 with them, they'd want money, and not necessarily worry about the food and things like that goes into a kit. And then I'd ask them, well, if you got just your game, but there's no power, how are you going to use your game? And then something would click, and that would start stirring in their minds. Oh, maybe I wouldn't bring that, and then I'd give them an opportunity to reorder it with time and discuss it. And they do this simultaneously. I do it 2 groups at a time, so that the other groups that are watching, or the other people in the room are watching, they can start thinking as well what they would put in their kits. And that, in my mind, has been the most effective way in helping people understand the importance of preparedness kits and how they can really benefit them during an emergency, especially when it comes to the things that the kids would be worried about. There's some kids who have that security device, that security blanket, or something that they need to soothe themselves. That's something that needs to be thought about as well. With elders, the ones that are in my home nation are about 90% traditional foods as their diet. And if they are evacuated out of our territory into the city, then their diet may comprise of restaurant food, and that will have a detrimental effect on their overall health because they're not used to that kind of food. That was very prevalent when the city of Lytton had their fire and they were evacuated. They've been out of their community for more than a few years now. It's taken time to rebuild and replan how the community was built. And their elders suffered greatly sitting in hotels, eating restaurant foods, and had detrimental effects on the community itself in watching the degradation of their elders, their leadership, their knowledge keepers, and watching them deteriorate in their health so rapidly. So keeping those things in mind when you're developing your kits, especially for your elders and your youth, will go a long way in ensuring that they are taken care of, or at least thought of, during the emergency. So that's the kits side of it. And when it comes to having your family safe, that frees you up and frees your mind up for having the ability to be more effective in your EOC, in your work setting. When it comes to the next step in training in preparedness, having drills on a regular basis, working with your fire department, working with your public works. So let's say you have a very robust fire department and they are looking to get more engaged with the community. They do some stuff with the school, but there's more stuff that can be done. One of the things that can be done is during Emergency Preparedness Week, have drills at the school or have drills at a public event where you have to evacuate or you have to shelter in place or mimic a fire in the area and practice escaping having escape techniques that are suitable for the children's age. Another topic that we practice very regularly in British Columbia is earthquake preparedness. So we have a thing called the Great Shakeout, and every year in October, I think it's the middle of October, we do a province-wide drill, especially along the coast, where we do a 60-second drill. We'll play it over the intercom or the PA system of the building we're in, and we will do a drill where we sit under the table. We get under the table or find a safe place for the shaking part of it, and it's quite interactive. in how that process works. So the video will, or the sound will play, and then it'll tell you what to do next after you check for injuries, and then you get out and you try find a safe place, safe exit, and then you start meeting up to the safe muster place because there might be an impending tsunami, right? Or there's fire preparedness where you can do a fire drill. There's all different kinds of things that you can do with your community members there's many resources out there that you can pull on towards your community for the educational piece, hand out brochures, have videos to watch, and that will increase the resilience of your community members. That's how you get the preparedness side of it. Get them thinking about the disaster before it happens. And when it comes to any type of evacuation, actually going through one where you find a way to check each of the homes and you find a way to make sure that all your elders are taken care of and physically evacuate the community will give them an understanding of the urgency that's needed in a time like that. When you need to evacuate, I'll use an example that we had back home. So we had to evacuate the community of Gingol during an earthquake that occurred near us in Alaska. We felt the shaking. It lasted 2 minutes, and everything shook, all the power lines and all that stuff. And the community evacuated within 40 minutes, like completely to their safe zone. This was early in the spring. In the fall, we had another sort of earthquake season, and there was a large earthquake, but it was more along the Aleutian Islands of Alaska. And we didn't really feel it in our villages. We were just told that there was an earthquake, and it was like a 7.8. And there was waves coming to our community. It was just an alert. It wasn't a warning where we would have had to actually evacuate. But when it came to getting everybody prepared, their minds were not in that same mode because they were used to waiting for the shake and then evacuating. And when there wasn't a shake, they felt that, well, we don't need to evacuate because I didn't feel any earthquakes, so there is no danger. And that one took 4 hours to get everybody out, to get that buy-in. Another example is when it comes to preparedness and understanding your community. There's a community in the southeast. I won't name the community, but there was a large fire that affected the 5 communities within that small region, and they all had to evacuate. Now, they were told to evacuate by an RCMP member. And the people that did not want to evacuate were somewhat young elders to older elders, and whether you're aware of it or not, there was a thing called the 60 Scoop residential school. I'm sure most people are aware, but 60 Scoop in particular, it was done with RCMP members, where people were taken out of their homes by people in those same uniforms, and that had a negative trigger, a negative impact on those community members in abiding by those orders by the RCMP members, and they did not leave. Even though the fire was encroaching and they weren't really doing anything to prepare themselves for the fire, their mentality and the trauma that that was re-triggered, they could not get over that factor and stayed home. I was in the area with my crew. I had a 20-man wildfire crew at the time, and we were there working with First Nations Emergency Services Society. So we went there to do rapid wildfire mitigation. And that involved pulling everything away from the home, cutting down any vegetation around the home, including under the carports, and under the porches and whatnot, and just literally taking everything out of the hot zone of the home. Going on the roof, blowing all the leaves out of the gutters and everything that we can do. Usually doing one house per hour with the team that we had. So at the same time, we were working with other contractors on this particular type of project. I went around to each of the homes to ensure that they were evacuated and made sure with a sign saying, or a ribbon saying that this house is clear, this house is clear. And when I'd go to another house that had those elders in it or was still occupied, I showed up in my uniform, and I had a very similar uniform to the Coast Guard. Blue shirt, black pants, and my Indigenous logos on my First Nations logos on my uniform. So I looked official, but I was also very much First Nations. And I took that approach with those community members in informing them that I was there to protect their homes. We were here in this community, we're going to stay here. We're going to set up sprinklers. We're going to keep mitigating the homes and fight the fire. And that's when they made the decision to leave, and they were gone within 20 minutes. So having that type of understanding of your people that you're working with in the traumas that they faced over the years will go a long way ensuring that your preparedness program is ready to handle that kind of trauma, that kind of information, and have facts and resources to be able to back yourself up. And hopefully that will give you a good understanding of preparedness tools that will allow you to be more resilient in your role as an emergency program coordinator, and having at least a baseline of things that you can cover, and then down the road you can expand to further things, take on more. I'm trying to keep it within your span of control so that I'm not trying to put too much on you at once. So hopefully this will work for you. And yeah, thank you very much.